Everyone, Daishihan Miller, and we're here again with another one of our Whiteboard Wednesdays. And so, if you've been following along, great. This video that we're going to be dealing with today or sharing with you today is tied into several from the past, and we'll try to attach some links and cards. And I'm trying to figure out this whole system and whatnot to be able to put things in there so that you can just shoot over to other related things. But I'll mention them a little bit as we go, okay? If you have been following along, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that kind of cool stuff, right? Not just for you to get notified when new ones are coming out, right? But also to help share the love, right? Every video is designed to help us or me help you get as close to street reality as possible, okay? I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, because I wouldn't wish violence on anybody, but unfortunately, not everyone has the same kind of street experience with using the stuff they're teaching like I and a lot of my peers have. Okay, remember, there's three types of instructors. All of them can help you, but we want to make sure that we're really clear about what we're getting from who. Okay, so you got the guy who's learned whatever they're teaching, right? They got a black belt in something, right? And they're passing that on to you. So cool, right? That's a good thing, right? We've got other ones that have learned it, right? They're passing that on, and they have fight experience, right? They've actually been in the thick of things. They've been attacked by violent people or whatever, right? They've survived, right? Won, lost, whatever, right? But they know what it's like inside that bubble. So, they can help as a way or also, right? But they may not have ever used the stuff that they're teaching you actually in that situation, right? Okay. And then you have those few of us that what we're teaching, we've actually applied, right? We've whipped Musha, Dori, Onikudaki. We've done the stuff. We've dealt with the danger and we've applied things, right? It's actually, you probably can't see it in the screen. Maybe you can, right? This mandala over here, right? That I want to point to now, right? If you can see that, let me shift this so that little overlay is not in the way, right? Okay. It's actually divided into like three different columns, right? There's lots of different ways to see these things, but that's this ancient knowledge that points out, enlightenment is this column down the middle, right? And what we're wise about and expert at or whatever. And then these two extremes on either side. One, you probably use my other hand based on the way things are popping up on my screen here, right? On one side, that's the knowing of this stuff, right? We've gone through the classes, we've, earned the belt, whatever, right? It's the intellectual side of things, the knowledge side of things, the book smarts, whatever you want to call it, right? And then the column on the opposite side, right, is experiential knowledge, right? Street smarts, those kind of things, right? So I've actually done and created things with the stuff I've learned, right? And so the ancient teachings tell us that when both of those things balance out, right? About the same topic, about the same technique, about the same skill. When those things balance out, right? Book smart, dojo smart, whatever, street smart, actual experience with applying it against actual violence, then we've got this thing, call it enlightenment, call it wisdom, call it mastery, call it whatever you want. Anyway, all right. So that being said, let's jump on the topic for today. And what I want to take a look at is another one of these aspects that we're going to need to have when or if we're actually going to, be able to apply what we're learning against somebody who's trying to beat, break, or kill us, right? Not in a dojo, not whatever, right? Not at a demonstration, none of that stuff, right? Because the reality is that the only person on this freaking planet that's ever going to allow you to do these moves to them, right? To apply these techniques to them and actually mean allow it, right? Is your training partner, right? Nobody else, especially people that are trying to beat, break, and kill you. So we're going to come at this from a bunch of different aspects. But what we're going to focus on today is something I call throw flow. I don't know if there's a Japanese term to it. I could come up with one if that makes everybody feel warm and fuzzy. But what we're looking at here is the ability to go from any lock holder throw to any other lock holder throw, or to be able to salvage a lock holder throw, right? So we actually go from one to another. Let's say I'm trying to apply Uragyaku, right? This inside wrist reversal, and he pops away from that and throws a punch, and then I catch him on the opposite side, and I'm doing the same thing. Or he goes to escape from it. I do something to counter that and go right back to it. But what I'm going to focus on today is going from any lock holder throw to any other lock holder throw with a smooth transition, okay? Or as smooth as you're going to get in this knockdown, drag out kind of thing, right? So let's start by looking at this idea, right? Throw flow. Well, let's use a different color because sometimes these colors don't show up very well in video, right? So, and I'm just picking throw flow so I don't have to write down lock, hold, or throw every time I mention it, right? But throw flow, right? We get this idea of nagare, right? This is any technique, but today, again, we're going to focus on being in there and up against somebody and whatnot. So not only are we catching them and locking them and all that, but we're right up against them and attached to them. So any kind of resistance or strength or escape or whatever is going to be immediately translated to us failing, right? The technique failing, right? So, and we'll take a look at, as we go along toward the end, how we might use this in a way that the technique's not failing, okay? It's not failing, but we're going to use it as a smokescreen, right? But let's start off really answering the question that a lot of students have for me, and that is, since I'm doing this thing and then like it falls apart, what do I do next? Okay. Well, there's lots of things you could do next, right? For beginners, if a lock, hold, or throw starts failing, first thing I tell people is let go, disengage, and back out. Let the fight reset to zero, and then right, you got a do-over, right? You get this karmic do-over kind of thing, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, growing up having either a bad reputation or being bullied or whatever in school, and instead of staying in the same area, right, friggin' move, right? Set up in a new area, and now you've got this reset, right? And then you get a chance to do things over. Now, there, so stuck with whatever knowledge or or habits or baggage or whatever you brought with you, but you don't have all this other shit going on, right? But either way, right? So you're going to disengage. Next step up is if you can, right? I'm going to hit him, right? So maybe I'm trying to do a lock, hold, or throw. He jams that up, right? What a lot of people will do is they'll just keep trying to force the same thing to happen, right? A quick way to do things is just pop him in the eye joint, right? That causes him to disengage for half a second, lose the strength where he's trying to put it, and then I might be able to reclaim that same thing, right? What we're looking at here is the whole thing is falling apart, okay? So throw flow, again, is the ability to go from one to another to another. Now, if you've been following along, last week's Whiteboard Wednesday, I was taking a look at this idea of how to always have the right technique at the right time, right? This comes right out of the scrolls, okay? Never do one that's not already working. But what I laid out was like five conditions, and I think I gave you a sixth bonus one, right? So if you haven't seen that one, go back and check with that. Again, I'll try to remember to put a link somewhere on the video or in the description below. Don't forget to check the description below. I hide a lot of extra stuff in there. So anyway, and we took a look at these different conditions. So a couple of those conditions are things like knowing what the technique feels like when it's working. Okay, not you think it's working or it should be working or whatever. What's a technique? What's a mushadori feel like when the shoulder joint is open and everything's working right, and you're locking up the T8 T9 connection in the spine, and things are arching where they're supposed to be, as opposed to where they're not supposed to be, right? Which leads into the other point that I had, which was knowing what it feels like when the technique is not working, regardless of whether or not he's resisting or not, right? What's it feel like when it's not working, right? So what does it feel like when he's resisting, and what's that doing for him? What does it feel like when I missed my mark? What does it feel like when the joint's loose and I don't have anything, right? I'm going through the motions. I'm doing the step-by-step right. I'm doing the mechanics right, but I don't have it, okay? I don't have it, right? So you have to pardon me. I got a couple of notes down here. I don't want to miss anything because I literally threw a bunch of stuff in here. Okay, and I've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So we actually start this idea of throw flow in our curriculum for those who are prepping for Shodan, for first degree black belt. Okay, even though I don't expect somebody to be able to use everything they've learned, taijutsu only, ninjutsu only, against any attacker on the street throwing whatever they want until second degree black belt. Right, for those of you who have been ranked Bujinkan wide, Hatsumi Sensei tells me what I expect for my knee dans, he doesn't expect until somebody's around 8th or 9th dan. So use that for whatever comparison it is, right? But it's definitely a part of the Shodan to Nidan curriculum because we're talking about flow, being able to string our basics together in unbroken flow against whatever he's doing. Not what I want to be doing. I let him lead the dance. And then it's a bigger part, and as we level up, through Sandan, Yondan, that kind of thing, right? Because then we're going to be kind of setting him up in different ways, right? Okay, so I'll come back to a couple of different ways as to how we can use it, but I want to stay on this whole idea of the technique is failing, right? I go to do a mushadori, I go to do an onikudaki, and he either powers or he's really, really good and he slips it, that kind of thing, right? So let's take a look at a couple of reasons why a technique might fail, okay? It's really, really important because often people just walk around scratching their heads and they want a quick answer from sensei, right? What do I do? What do I do if it fails? Well, my first question is, why is it failing? If you don't know why it's failing, all I'm going to do is throw out a whole bunch of things to look at. But until you know why it's failing, right? Which again goes back to that previous video of knowing how to do a technique, knowing what it feels like when it's working, that kind of stuff, right? So if I don't know why it's failing, then my suggestion is you friggin' let go and you bail. Otherwise, he's going to use it against you. Okay. So reasons that it would fail. And again, I'm just going to pull my notes here so that I don't miss anything and then drop the value ball on you kind of thing, right? Okay. So, and again, these are in no particular order unless you want to make it that way, right? So first reason that a technique could fail is you don't know it well enough. Well enough. Might be nice if I could spell today, right? You don't know it well enough, okay? That doesn't mean you don't know the step-by-steps. That doesn't mean that you can't do it slow motion or whatever. But unless you can do a technique correctly without resistance and all that stuff, right? 8, 9 out of 10 times without something going amiss, right? You don't know it well enough, okay? If you still need to think about the step-by-step as you're doing it, you don't know it well enough. Okay. Remember, we're talking about getting ready for street reality, street use. Okay. So there are certain conditions you must have, not certain conditions you think you have, or I believe I have, or here's a word that I just love in the English language these days, right? Okay. Well, I feel like what the hell does that mean? Right. What I hate, and I hate very few things, I hate the fact that the language has morphed into allowing people to use the word feel where the word think belongs. Okay, so I'm going to give you how you feel. Feel for us is tactile, right? Am I getting the tactile feedback that the technique is working or it's not working or whatever? And in which direction is the resistance going and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, so maybe at some point I'll do a Whiteboard Wednesday on the 5 skandhas from our Mikkyo training and how the typical practitioner is high in certain areas and low in other areas. And those things need to be balanced out because until all of them are the same, right, as part of our makeup, right, it's a crapshoot, right? Or we're running around based on feelings and beliefs and faulty perspectives and that kind of crap, right? This is not like buying a couch. This is not like buying a piece of furniture, car, whatever. That if somebody screws you over or you're wrong, you can buy a new couch or take it back and be pissed at them or whatever, right? We're talking about survival, okay? So if you screw this up, as my teachers used to say, if you screw this up, your family better look good in black, okay? And I don't mean the way we wear black. I mean, you know what I mean, right? Okay? So anyway, all right. Let's see. Number 2, all right? You can't do it with, right now I'm just going to write the word dynamics in here. Okay. But what I mean in here is you can't do it with flow. And that what I mean with that is you can't do it matching his movements. Okay. You can't do it against resistance or knowing what kind of resistance you're going to run into. It's a whole slew of things, right? Your timing is off, all that stuff, right? Okay. Third reason that a technique might fail is he's either good, right? Or he's lucky. Okay, so the good or he's lucky, right? This guy's got some skills, or he happens to do something at just the right time, and it kind of throws you off, right? And the fourth one, I hate doing lists of 4 because in Japanese, 4, shi, is never used, right? You don't find dishes in sets of 4 or anything, right? Little kids aren't congratulated on their 4th birthday, right? There's still a party and there's still lots of stuff that's going on, but you never congratulate somebody on being 4 shi because you have to use that word, and shi using a different kanji means death. So in the US and I don't know where else in the world, 13 is an unlucky number. In Japan, 4 is an unlucky number, but I'm going to do it anyway, because if you screw this up, well, that might be what's waiting for you, right? So the fourth reason a technique might fail is you're having an off day. You're having an off day, right? Okay. Everybody, when I say everybody, I mean virtually everybody, like 98% of students, right? Assume that once they learn the moves, they can use those moves against somebody who's trying to beat, break, or kill them on the street. But another big thing is, once I learn it, my shit's always going to work. Really? Well, there are a lot of dead special operations people, a lot of highly trained police officers, military, whatnot, that knew their stuff too. But, right? One may just get you, okay? But what we can really look at with the off day is, okay, I'll give you an example. I have a disc injury in my spine from a really bad car crash back at the end of like 2007. Okay, here we are in 2022, and karma is still following me. All right, so I've got this bulging disc, and and it's right in a really bad place, right? But every once in a while, when it flares and it bulges, it'll push against the thecal sac, right, which is this protective sac that goes around your spinal cord. Okay, it'll press against it, and I get this nuisance kind of pain or irritation. If it pushes a little bit more, there's more pain. Okay, if it really bulges and pushes the thecal sac into the spinal cord itself, I feel like somebody shoved a steel spike through my torso, and I can't feel the pain in the back. It feels like this metal rod is sticking through my chest, right? So in the past, when this kind of thing is flared up, doctors have wired me up to check my heart, when the reality is it's somewhere else, okay? So here's the story. Last night, this thing flared so badly, it woke me up out of a deep sleep. You talk to my wife, she knows past military has allowed me to fall asleep and be asleep. So for something to wake me up means that something is threatening the system, okay? So it woke me up. I tried to relax it, tried to do my meditation, tried to do my breathing exercises, relaxation, and all the stuff that we normally have to avoid introducing chemicals to the system, okay? 3:35, 3:38, something like that, right? In my groggy, half asleep kind of thing, trying to make this stuff go away. I finally took a painkiller and a muscle relaxer that I only ever take at bedtime because the body's going to reset. I can't function well, that kind of thing, right? So anyway, I wake up this morning late because that's what it does to me, right? System's fairly reset. Here I am doing this kind of stuff, but I can feel a little bit of brain fog happening, okay? I can feel that my timing's probably going to be a little off today. Processing's taking a little bit longer. I know that because all the work I've done today, it's taken me a little bit longer than normal. I don't feel on, right? Okay. So think about, you got the flu, you got whatever, right? You have to run to the pharmacy to get some meds, apothecary, whatever it is in your country, right? And so I've got to do this, and I get jumped then, right? I can barely move. I can barely function. Breathing and my pulse ox readings, right? The amount of oxygen I'm pulling with my breath and all that is lower than it should be, which means that the organs aren't getting it. The brain isn't getting it to the degree that it does when I'm functioning at peak, right? So I'm just having an off day, right? Or for whatever reason, right? Biorhythms are off or whatever, right? And okay. So if our training doesn't account for this stuff, right? This should make me freaking train more, right? Because the goal is always to be able to deal with somebody on the street, untrained, throwing whatever they want, and you can use your Ninjutsu, your Budo Taijutsu alone. Right? A lot of people don't even have that or that as a goal, and that's why they run around learning a bunch of different things, right? Because they think they're filling in the cracks or whatever. And the reality is it takes them longer to get to that point because they have to come up from beginner to intermediate to whatever in all of these things, right? Either way, right? So we got to make sure that's happening, right? We have to make sure that we're doing training drills and we're doing things at a certain point in our training that introduce resistance, that introduces flow, that makes me have to do these things based on his timing, his movements, and all that. Not mine. Not slow, soft training. Right? Doesn't mean we need to go at killer speed because you don't need to break your partner. But timing should be erratic. all those kind of things, right? And I don't just mean normal timing. He moves, I move, da, da, da. I mean things start slow, go fast suddenly, right? Things are going fast and then they slow down, that kind of thing. If we don't play in here, we're not going to be able to do things in what we consider to be our upper level stuff, where we're using these things and this changing timing and whatnot to throw him off. In the beginning, if I can't freaking detect it, how the hell can I use it, right? Right? I have to recognize that somebody can get a lucky shot in, okay? So a lucky shot, we always assume, and my teachers in the very, very beginning made us force the reality and train as though the attacker will always be better than us. They will always have the advantage over us. And so we've got to come at this from a perspective that we're the underdog and we have got to neutralize the advantage before we need to neutralize theirs before we can get ours, okay? Causes your training to be completely different, all right? If we don't do that and we make these assumptions that I'm the biggest, baddest motherfucker on whatever on the planet, right? And he shoots me in the face from across the street, well, then a whole lot of time, effort, money, and whatever has just been wasted, okay? So, and we have to recognize that reality, right? If you look back over your past couple of hours, days, weeks, whatever, right? You know when you've had off days, right? You were distracted. Somebody said something. You've been pissed off for days, or you're holding on to things, or, you know, you had, like I had not too long ago, right? Had COVID and I recovered very, very quickly. But I know people that are, you know, it's weeks or months and they're still having these symptoms and whatnot that are throwing them down or throwing them off, right? So we have to recognize that these things are happening, right? Or there's reasons that a technique could fail, and thereby there's a reason that we should freaking train to recover or whatever based on a failing technique. Okay. So again, if you still need this, you can always hit rewind, go back. Okay? YouTube allows for that stuff now. Not that I always haven't been able to rewind on things, but now YouTube, if you use that little scrubber thing at the bottom, right? Click on it and drag it, right? This little thing pops up in the back that's a shadow that tells you when the most and least viewed times during that video were, okay? I guess that allows people to shortcut things. I don't know. But one of the things that causes things to peak for mine is I tell somebody then go back and relook at one of these things. So if you look at mine, you're probably going to end up on something where people went back to take a snapshot or to write notes out or whatever, right? Anyway, let's keep moving. Okay. Excuse me. All right. Okay. So again, I talked about previous videos. You can always go back and look at those other ones. So let's take a look at, well, I'll give you a couple examples. I don't have a partner with me, and this really irritates a lot of people, but this is not a how training, right? This is a what and a why training, okay? Our training in Ninjutsu comes in 3 packets, 3 different ways, right? There's Taiden, right, which is body training, right? There's Shinden, or sometimes called Kokoroden, that kind of thing, right? Where it's about the experience. And so we use drills and things like that, right? And then there's this Kuden, right? Which is training for the mind, training for the personal development and things like that, right? That's that one-on-one teacher kind of thing. That's why I have a Monday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Kuden podcast. And the reason it's called Kuden, right? But the point of this training is the what and the why, right? You got to come into training or get involved in one of the programs, or, there's that little link that's right down there, right? This Friday, we'll be doing a deep dive training in class, in one of our master's class here at the dojo that you can get on virtually, where we're going to take a look at this throw flow with some technique examples and stuff like that, right? Based on this class, right? So if you want the how, there's that, right? Or it's there, right? Anyway, I always get that backwards when I'm moving my hands around. Anyway, okay, so if you can visualize this, if you've been around for a while, you might be able to kind of get a handle on this, right? But if I shift in, let's say somebody punches, grabs, or whatever, I move, pop them to stall them and get that hang time on that arm, and it's loose and it belongs to me for 7 to 11 seconds, right? Because of what happened. And even if it doesn't, 2-3 seconds is more than enough. And I catch this thing for this onikudaki, right? This demon crusher kind of technique. It's a shoulder dislocation that takes the humerus, the head of the humerus, the upper arm bone, and rotates it in the AC joint and separates it, like taking the thigh bone off the, whatever, right? Okay. So I have this and I'm doing it and I'm moving, and all of a sudden he shifts, or whatever happens, right? He shifts and he's able to bring the arm into a forward position. Okay, so if you've ever wondered why your onikodaki doesn't work, check the position of the elbow relative to the chest. That's not affecting the spine. The elbow needs to be out in line with the two shoulders or beyond. So when that it's moved, it automatically jacks at the spine, right? I'm going to try to not do that too much so I don't cause anything to flare, and I can freaking teach classes later. Anyway, so I have this going on, right? And all of a sudden I feel it. I feel myself lose it, right? If I have my pieces in the right place, right, I might be able to, and there's lots of things that can be done, but I might be able to slide in and push this arm down, right? So it's here, right? And so I might be able to push it down into this space and rotate, and that onikodaki suddenly turns into a mushadori. Okay, that's what I mean by flowing from one to the next to the next. Or I'm doing this onikodaki, right? And this guy does one of these escapes that we have, right? That when this is happening, he steps out in line with that force and shoves his arm straight. Let me change the angle here, right? So it's going this way, and he shoves it straight, and he can even turn the hand down or whatever, right? Okay, but it's to free up that AC joint, right? Okay, so when he does that, right? So I have this, and he suddenly shoves, and now there's a straight arm, right? I'm based on where things are. This is straight arm. I reach back, I catch the hand because it's now right here. I've lost everything, but I haven't. Okay. The rule of thumb is any failed technique is the setup for a different technique. There's no such thing as failure in ninjutsu. If you're failing, you're dying. Okay. So a failed technique just means that I don't have this anymore. Right? Remember well, if you've been following along in the previous lesson, I shared something from the scrolls of, I think it's the Takagi Yoshin view, right? That is the answer for always having the right technique. And the answer is never do a technique that's not already working, right? So if he breaks this thing, it's no longer working. I go, oh, hey, look, right? And I grab for this other thing, okay? So the idea is I don't marry myself to any given technique or enslave yourself or whatever you want to, call it or use, right? And I accept whatever he gives me. I'm perfectly okay with that, okay? It's kind of like the difference between dogs and cats, right? I have a dog. We've had cats, right? Dog makes a mistake. Dog will look at you like, oh, I messed up, okay? Cat could jump from a table to the couch, hit a lamp, crash and burn, break stuff. He'll land on his feet and look at you like, I meant that. Okay? Have the attitude of a cat. Whatever he does, that's cool. Thanks. It's exactly what I wanted. Thanks a lot. Okay? If he changes that, oh, cool. This is what I wanted. Okay? And be okay with that. All right? Anyway, all right? So let's take a look at 3 ways to use this, right? And if you want to get some examples of how this flow kind of thing works and to go from one to another, right? Being on the Fridays class, I promise you'll get a ton out of it, and for less than $5. Anyway, all right? So let's finish this up by talking about 3 ways that this will be used, okay? So the 3 ways, right? One is to recover, right? Or recovery, whatever you want to say, right? So I'm losing a technique, or he's jammed it, right? I go to do this onikodaki, and I can't get his arm past here because he strengthens up, okay? Or I'm doing one of these mushadori, right? And before it breaks that center line for no man's land, where if he resists, it blows his shoulder out, right? Because there is a point, there's a sweet spot in the technique that if you get to there and he applies resistance, he causes the damage to himself. Before that, he can escape, he can lock it down and resist, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I meant about knowing a technique well enough, okay? You need to know these aspects about it, right? I don't care if you know it here or you know it here or you know it intuitively. I don't care. You need to know. Okay. But we're doing this and he locks it up, right? So I'm coming in from this side. It's a Musha Dori, right? He jams it right here and then he starts forcing things back up. Okay. Because he's taking it away from me. And if I'm not careful, remember, I have it like this. He starts to resist. Look what starts to open up. He can reach in here and start breaking ribs or whatever, right? So as soon as I feel that lock up, right, I'm going to come around the other way and step in. So I go from here to putting him into a ganseki, right? Because I'm not connected to, or I don't have this imperative need to execute a specific technique. What I have an imperative need to do is not die in this moment at the hands of this jackwagon. And if our priorities are different, we can still be friends, but this is not going to equate very much because my job is to take the ancient teachings and make sure that you can apply them against people out there, not in here, right? Anybody can do shit in the dojo. Okay, you can arrange things like it's like a stage play. Everybody's got their spot. Everybody's got their script. Everybody's got their okay. Just be careful that that's not the thing that makes you feel all warm and fuzzy. Okay, all right. So recovery, right? He's locking, escaping, whatever. Okay, and but recovery is typically used because of resistance, which is strength. Right? Okay. So I can't fight it. He owns the strength arena. I need to do something else, right? So I'm going to use more of a wind kind of adaptive and shift kind of thing, right? Okay. I can use it. I'm going to save that one till last, right? I can use it to adapt. Okay. Or for adapting, whatever you want to call it, right? Okay. So, what I'm talking about here is I'm adapting to his escaping techniques, like that thing where he shoved out from the Onikudaki, right? And I caught an Uragyaku because that's what he gave me, right? And that's how I always see things, right? Whatever he does, he's giving me things. It's a different mindset, right? Instead of me worrying about, him getting me with things, what's he giving me? Okay, I let him lead the dance until he can't lead anymore, in which case I take over, right? It's a whole different mindset, right? So adapting, right? And again, this is normally for handling when they're escaping, okay? And then the last one, the reason I saved this for last is this is for people that are Nidan in our curriculum, Nidan moving north, right? Okay? We can use it, this strategy, to confuse, for confusing them, okay? This one takes a little bit to get your head wrapped around, right? But what we're doing here is we're using a technique knowing that he will resist, okay? So I go through all this Shodan to Nidan kind of stuff, right? Learning where somebody can resist, where their resistance backfires on them, where the resistance doesn't and I'm screwed, where they can get out, where they can lock it, all that kind of stuff, right? And I'm learning from all the failures, right? Here's another problem people have. Nobody wants to fail, so they set up their training so they don't. But failure teaches us the adaptability stuff. Failure also teaches us how to reverse engineer that and trigger him so that he will resist or try to escape in exactly the direction we want him to go. You know how you always know how to do the right technique? Make him do the thing you need him to do so that your technique works just like that, right? But it's not like teacher demonstrates and your uke will do it, or you tell the uke, okay, so what I need is it's a straight punch, man. Don't throw a hook punch. It's not a jab. It's a stepping. No, right? You need to be able to do that with your body language, your positioning, your angling, your timing. You're presenting him opportunities and then taking them away. So you create this state in him that when you give him the thing that you want him to bite on, he can't not, because if he doesn't, he'll lose it again, right? You're not giving him anything else, right? So anyway, right, with confusion here, right? Let's say I want to do a ganseki, right? I want to step in and toss him in that direction, right? If I just step in to do that, and I think we didn't had a lesson on this, right? If I step in to do that, he's instinctively gonna try to close it down. So I have to do things, and you have to look in the model, right? I think we did a video or a lesson on the 3 stages in a technique: the entering, the execution, and the recovery, right? Or the trapping or whatever, right? So what people do is they do the model, but they confuse the model with the whole technique. So one of the base models for Ganseki is he grabs either a double lapel grab or grabs in a kumyuchi position. You break the grip, you shift in, you catch, and you throw it, right? Okay. Nobody's going to let you do that, right? So the entering part's really, really important, right? When I break that grip, there's a little bit of a pull to it. I'm not pulling him, but a pull occurs, right? I'm doing it in a way that causes him to fall forward, and he'll catch himself. But if I do it in a way where I drop the kikakuken right in the way of his face, right? So now he's going to catch himself, but he needs to not get hit in the face. He might get hit in the face, right? But either way, that takes everything away and creates an open window so I can step in and do my cool technique, okay? So if I understand that, right? And I understand that if I go directly for a technique, he will consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously, flinch response, whatever, immediately try to save that part of his body, even before he knows what's going on. Sensory input, right? Because he's in a fight, flight, or freeze mechanism or state, he'll instantly go to jam that up, right? So from right here, before I go in for the Ganseki, let's say I shift in a way where I push in against his arm to start jamming down on this elbow like I'm going to move in for a mushadori. What's he going to do? He's going to resist that. The body is symmetrical, okay? When he locks down over here and moves strength here to protect himself, strength drains from over here. Not completely, but it drains, right? So I move in a way that will allow me to step in and do a Ganseki easily, but what I'm going to do is I shift in first and while I'm hiding the hand, is I'm going to attack the other arm. Or whatever technique I'm going to use, right? Okay. So he locks down over there. His consciousness and everything goes to defending against that. That leaves me that open window. So by the time he realizes I'm going for the shoulder and he lets go with the resistance over here and starts to come back, he now feeds my technique. And so it's about confusing him. It's about making him believe that the fight is going on anywhere else but where you're going. Ninja invisibility. It's ninja manipulation. It's mind science. Okay, this is what separates the men from the boys, the ladies from the girls, the ninja from the warriors from the martial artists from the let's see what happens kind of guys. Okay, it's like playing chess. Okay. But for those who don't want to play with the head stuff, and for those who don't want to play with the experiential stuff, or what some people call the woo-woo stuff, right? Which is not, it's just other faculties operating that most people don't even know they have, right? For those folks, I got nothing, okay? I mean, I'll show you the step-by-step moves because you're paying for it just like everybody else. But if you want to see where those moves go, see, that's what my students, and to not beat around the bush about this, that's what my students are paying for. Okay, my students are paying to learn what and how that I've pulled in from masters to go, not just little moves. Okay, but anyway, that being said, right? So throw flow. Throw flow is the ability to go from one technique to another, regardless of the resistance, escape, or whatever, right? Because there's a mindset going on and a feeling and a state that allows him to just do whatever the hell he wants. And because I've worked on my tactile sense, right? We work on all the senses, but my tactile sense, and this to me is more reliable than these things, right? Because I'm going to have more contact with them and all that, and I learn to read that and go with it so I can move into void spaces, move away from tension and pressure, all those kind of things, right? Then whatever he does, it's perfectly okay, right? Anyway, this might have been like hopefully it wasn't super confusing, as I know I threw a bunch at you at one time, but if you want to see more of this in action and you want to get some of the how-to, then there's that link. There's that link, right, to the Friday virtual training, right? Doors are open on it now if you want to sign up, but based on the fact that we're on Zoom, I've got a full classroom, plus I have to answer questions for people that are on the virtual class, right? We have a strict limit of 15 people on the virtual side. I can't do more than that. Okay. And that's based on the fact that 80% of them don't ask any questions. Okay. So I can only handle 15. Right. So if you go to the page and the timer's still running, then there's still an opening. If the timer's not running, either you waited too long because the doors close 90 minutes before the class starts, so I can make sure everybody has all the information they need to get there, or we hit our 15 limit and doors are closed, and it's a strict limit. So, and again, it's $4.99, right? It's the cheapest classes you're ever going to get from me, right? But anyway, if you want to do that, great. If not, no harm, no foul. I've given you enough that you can go back through these different areas, right? And add that to your training, right? So hopefully that all works out. Don't forget, right? Subscribe if you're on YouTube to make sure that you get the notifications when the new ones come out, as well as the other videos that I've been adding lately. I just added one with 3 different wrist grab escapes. There's tons of strategy and all that kind of stuff in them, even though most people are looking at the step-by-step moves. They're missing the rest of it, right? I just did another one on 3 different body grabs, right? Those kind of things, right? So if you want to get in on them, great. If you're in the Sunbury Selinsgrove area of Pennsylvania, or you want to come in for a seminar or class, right? We're here. You can always look us up, right? The information's down in the description session. That's it. That's all I got for this week. I'll talk to everybody again either on Friday if you're in on the virtual call, or I'll talk to you next week on our next Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Be safe. Train hard. Talk to you soon.